And it tells you right here what we got going on. It's a carbon bucket seat from Spoon. Oh, look at that. Looks like these polyurethane bushings have failed on here. Do you feel more JDM, Mike?
Very, very JDM.
Really good. And now it's bolted with 2 bolts in. It's not moving. And one of the things we had issue with last year is we didn't have enough camber in with how low. I know TJ would never buy them because they're 18s, and he's just not an 18 kind of guy.
It's a nice wheel.
That should have came out a lot better than I expected. What's going on, everybody? Mike here, AHC Garage. Welcome back to the channel. In this video, we'll be covering a bunch of our cars that we'll be bringing to the Classic Honda Dragon event out in the Carolina, and also Tennessee's. Now, to start this off, we have David's EG6. You see this car on cover of a previous video, and the most recent video, you see this car on the dyno. Now, today's video, we got a couple of suspension parts that we're gonna do, and also really special seat that we'll be installing, and John's gonna tell you guys a little bit more about that.
All right, so we are back working on David's car, as Mike talked about. Last time, this clown car looking thing with the yellow wheels on it. I can't get jiggy with those wheels. It's just not my style. Maybe they say I'm colorblind, and that's my problem. I think if you like that, you might be colorblind too. But nevertheless, we have a couple of mods to do that. One of these comes in this big box, and it tells you right here what we got going on. It's a carbon bucket seat from Spoon, and that should be pretty nice. We have that matched up with a set of PCI sliders, and we also have a set of the honed rear, what's it called? Geometry correction kit. We did this on my hatch, and David has to be like me, so he wants it on his hatch as well. And that should help fix the orientation of the rear lower control arms. Right now they're kind of at this angle. It'll bring everything back into the proper factory geometry the way it was designed. So we're gonna go ahead and get into it. I think the most time consuming part may be the seat. So let's go ahead and start working on the suspension first.
Hey John, real quick, can you give us a backstory on this car here?
So we may have mentioned a little bit about it when we were at the dyno and why we rebuilt the motor on it and whatnot, but in the end, what happened is the engine starved of oil on the return run that we did on the tail of the Dragon. This was before the car meet. We get up to the mountain a little bit earlier, but yeah, it was pretty low on oil somehow, some way. I don't know if it burned it or what the issue was, but it ran low on oil, spun a rod bearing on the tail of the Dragon. We had to drive it from Deals Gap all the way to Robbinsville, so it's a very long drive through the mountains with it knocking. And then as a team, someone thought it was a good idea to try and sand the crank and put new rod bearings in it, which absolutely did not fix anything. So we ended up renting a truck trailer and towing it back to Florida. And once we got it back home, the plan was to throw a stock K24 in it, but we can't do that. So we ended up getting a JBR motor, bottom end from it. Nice high compression overbore, and we saw what it made on the dyno. I can't recall right now. I'm sure Mike will let us know in the video here. But nevertheless, here it is, all back together again. It's running great, and we just have a few things we want to do to it before we're ready to put it to the test again. And hopefully it comes back this year under its own power.
And when is the day again, John?
It is the 12th and 13th, I believe, and that's in Marysville, Tennessee, and that's where the meet is at the high school. All that information will be below. Everything is updated on there. We're a sponsor of the event, so we will be there. We'll have shirts, we'll have our stuff, we'll have our cars. I'll have the real Honda, the NSX up there, and David has his little clown car, but you know, everyone will be happy. So we're getting ready to install the rear geometry correction kit from Hone Development. So we have to first unbolt the sway bar, the strut, and the outer part of the rear lower control arm. And then we'll show you what we do after that. Oh, look at that. Looks like these polyurethane bushings have failed on here. Man, that's the problem with these polyurethane. But oh, look at this whole thing just came apart. That's going to be something. Oh, look. Look at that. Yeah, so I don't think this is ready to slay the dragon. I think something like this is definitely not dragon spec. So I think we're going to go ahead and hit up our hard race supplier and see if we can't get some replacements for this. We have to make sure that it's specific to the Type R DC2 rear lower control arm, because that's the style struts that he has in the car. So, well, let's keep installing this and we'll have to see what we can get pretty quickly for that. All right, so the first thing we have to do is we have to remove this threaded boss right here. The easiest way I found to do it is with an air hammer. And I put the chisel behind here and I hit it like this. Now it's off. All right, so the next thing we have to do is we have to notch out this backing plate, because this is the component that goes there. And as you can see, it doesn't fit with this in there. So we're going to make a little notch in here and give this some more access. I'm also going to trim a little bit off the bottom here so it doesn't interfere with the lower control arm when we go to reinstall it. You know what's really bad about not having hair is when you grind stuff, the hot stuff hits you on your head. So we mocked up the bracket here so that we can get our point for our third hole we have to drill. So I did a little mark there, and now we're going to drill it all the way through with a 10mm drill bit. All right, so we got it in. Everything is mocked up. We're gonna hold off on tightening up till we come up with a new solution on a new control arm. But for now, this is all set up. The only thing we have to do is readjust the height of the suspension, because this lowered everything down. So it's gonna really slam the back of the car because we gotta bring it way up for it to meet. So we have to readjust the coilover down to compensate for this additional length we have here. This is the original mounting point. This is the new mounting point for the lower control arm. So let's get on to the next step. It's ready to open up the box. We get a peek at our spoon bucket seat here. Would you look at that? That's pretty light. Carbon Kevlar. So I believe it may say spoon on it, but it's actually made by Bride. Yes. Ooh. Oh, it smells good.
You got a JDM smell, John.
Yeah, and it smells much better because David hasn't sat in it yet either, so that's also very good. So, nice thing about Bride is they're made from, or excuse me, these spoon seats, they're not a felt material. They're a very, I don't know, like a performance kind of fabric here. So it's not going to mat out like suede would do. And it has all of your mounting for 6-point harnesses, extra mounts here. And as you can see, it is a full carbon Kevlar, extremely light. All of the specifications here, little spoonies here, and these are where it mounts into the actual seat. All right, so we're mocking this up. It may not be installed properly, so don't judge us on this, but we're trying to get a feel for how things are supposed to go and a baseline for the fitment of the seat. So we got some hardware on here. We have it loosely set up. That's the initial setting on it. So we have the seat mocked up in its first fitment. So we're going to go ahead and pull out the stock seats from the car right now. Mechanical. All right, so now we're going to have to remove the seatbelt buckle and put it onto the bracket on the seat.
Here we go.
All right, with some maneuvering, we were able to get everything bolted in, and the seat is in its initial setting. And now we're going to test it out and see how it actually, someone fits in it. Do you feel more JDM, Mike?
Very, very JDM.
Well, your legs look beautiful in this seat. And this seat is actually designed for someone of Asian heritage. And I think it looks like you're more Dragon Spec than David.
Dragon Spec approved.
You can see that the seat is installed. We test fit it. It's pretty lined up on the first shot. And I can tell you one thing. I haven't sat in it in the car yet, but I don't think I'll be driving this car too much anymore because apparently my butt is too large for it. But that's okay. I think it's an absolutely beautiful piece. It really sets the car off. And as long as David gets some new floor mats in here, the car would definitely look very appealing. All right, so now it's time to work on the front bumper. We have this Mac lifter kit. What this does is it adds these brackets to the bumper and attaches the bumper very securely and kills the gap that you end up getting right here. They sent this over. They make it for a bunch of different models. So right now we're going to use it for the EG. We also have a set of EDM headlights to replace the JDM plastic headlights. The difference on these is that they are glass housing instead of the plastic one, and they also have a height adjuster that we're probably not going to have wired up anytime soon, but this allows you to adjust the angle of the headlight. So let's go ahead and get the bumper off and start installing this. We already got it kind of prepped. Pull this thing off there, buddy. There we go. So let's go ahead and read the instructions and figure out what we're doing. All right, so what we're going to do here is we're going to use this piece and attach it to the actual bumper. Once we attach it to the bumper, right in this location here, set that in place. Right there, we're going to use 3 screws that are supplied to attach this metal tab to it. Then that'll allow us to use the larger hardware to actually bolt it to the fender securely, taking all the gap out of it. What do you think about that, JC?
I think it's going to be good.
I hope it's going to be good. I know it's going to be good. And with your help, anything is possible. For our NC1. How much, Mike?
Just had a like $25,000 Ford used carbon fiber batch. I can get a little weight one.
All right, so we're just using a pick to make our hole so that we can see it from the other side, and it gives us a good place to drill. So once you have the kit in, you have to use a nut and a bolt to bolt it into place and hold everything together. All right, so we have everything installed, and you can see how it really brings the gap in really good. And now it's bolted with 2 bolts in. It's not moving. So this is pretty good. Very happy with it. Totally works. Highly recommended. Now let's move on to the rear suspension and get this thing wrapped up. Here's our old ones that came out. These are Function 7, but I think they're the newer versions. And you can see the bushings are gone completely. So this probably wasn't going to handle very well. So in replacement of that, we have the Hard Race full spherical setup here. These things are very nice. Much sturdier design than these. I will say that they are a little bit heavier too, and that's probably due to the spherical bushings. But let's go ahead and get these put in, because this is definitely going to solve all of our issues back here. All right, so we have everything in, and we just have to now adjust the suspension to compensate for the change in geometry on the lower control arm. That, and goodbye to the clown wheels. And here we go with some blue TEs.
Well, pretty even.
All right, so we did our first test on it. It looks like we got it pretty close on one side, and we just have to adjust this side just a little bit to get it dialed in perfect. All right, so we have one last thing to do before we do the alignment on the car, and we're going to swap out the stock rubber shifter bushings right here with the hybrid Duralon ones here, and that should tighten up the shifting a little bit. This should be pretty simple. Let's go ahead and get it done.
That's it. So let's do it, huh?
Simple, easy, and it's hot. Got you good. Tell me when, Mike.
Yep.
All right, so we put it up, and one of the things we had issue with last year is we didn't have enough camber, and with how low David rides the car, we were having some rubbing issues. So we added in just about 2 degrees of camber in here, and you can see how badly that's thrown off our toe. So we're gonna start in the back. We're not worried about our rear camber, that's close enough. we're going to get this into spec in the back with the toe, then come up and adjust the toe in the front. So let's get under here and start moving around some suspension parts. All right, so we got this one all wrapped up. Now let's get ready for the next one. This one's nice too.
All right, guys, so here's the second car we'll be prepping for the Tower Dragon. As you can see, 2024 Integra Type-S in Apex Blue Pearl. And yes, this was my car. So about 2 months ago, a really good friend of mine picked this car up from me. And since then, he changed up a few things, but for the most part, I would say 80% of the parts remained on this car. Now you can see the brakes. Now we still have the original Brembos back on the car, along with the stock wheels. One of the reasons it is on the channel now is because we got a new set of wheels on this car here. Right now, let's focus on the wheels and tires, and TJ and John's gonna tell you guys a little more about it.
The Mugen wheels over here. And what spec are these?
18 by 9.5 with a nice weak plus 45 offset.
So we've been through this a few times with the Type S's, and everyone's got a different opinion on what looks better on the car. We know the 18s will work, but it gives it a very, very, I think, like an aggressive, tracky look. And that's not the style that you don't care for that. Right?
I'm not an 18 guy on the Type S.
So,
the 19s look more full.
But I think the owner of this car, it fits it perfectly because it's a weird wheel and he's a weird guy. So I think he'll really appreciate it, but not really. Either way, we're going to pair that with a set of some Falcon and Xena 615K pluses and a 265 3518. But in order to make this look good, I believe you guys are going to run some sort of spacer.
We're going to put a 5mm spacer to get rid of some of the weaker offset on here and bring it out a little bit more.
So it's a little bit of a compromise with the offset, but it still is going to give it a really good look altogether. And on this one as well, we're going to be running our Autel TPMS sensors in a black finish, right? And this way, he doesn't need to take the factory TPMS sensors out of the stock wheels. These are really cool because we're able to copy the stock sensors and write it to here. And this way, he has two totally complete sets of wheels, and he can switch back and forth without having to reprogram. And we don't have to break down the other wheels. So this is super convenient. And the fact that we can have a black cap on it instead of the silver finish is another big plus. They're easily able to be switched. These things are a really great option. We've been using them quite a bit with our Autel setup. And we'll have some information on that down in there. So let's go ahead and take a look at the wheel, and you guys can tell us what you think. Ooh. You may have seen this on a red NSX that we recently just did. They are forged in the new finish here with the milled imprints on the lip. Beautiful wheel. This should work out pretty good for him. I know TJ would never buy them because they're 18s, and he's just not an 18 kind of guy.
It's a nice wheel in a nice color. It's just the size is a little wrong for me.
You know what they say?
Size matters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
An inch matters.
Yes.
I do know that. That's for sure.
So TG got all 4 wheels and tires mounted and nicks up. I guess we're gonna have to take out the stock wheels. And to pair up with the wheels, we do have a set of Mugen lug nuts and a lock set. And as TJ and John mentioned, we do have a set of hub-centric wheel spacers. These are 5 mils. So these are the factory lug nuts here. And these are the Mugen. They look kind of identical. What do you say, TJ?
Let's see. Let's take one out. Slightly different.
Yeah.
Got a different seat and it's a little longer.
It is definitely OEM style.
I like the lock.
There you go. And one of the things we did change up during his ownership is the suspension. Initially, I did have the Fortune Auto, I forgot the exact term, but it's almost like a coilover setup. And recently, we have switched over to the Swift springs. So the last thing we have, blue center cap. Let's go ahead and pop this on. There you go. That's the Mugen package right there for you folks. Here we go. Time to put her down on the ground. Now before she hit the ground, one of the other things that we did change out all the emblem to black emblem, and the front emblem, it actually is an illuminated emblem in the front here. So we go ahead and turn that on just a little bit. Now the car about to hit the ground. Let's see. She looks good. It's a nice drop.
Let's see. That's it right there. It's on the ground.
There you go. Whoosh. And guys, here's another look. We moved it on to the main shop here. So you can kind of take a look and kind of give you a different perspective of what it looks from the outside. And here's another angle here. Side profile. Look from the front here. I like it. Actually came out a lot better than I expected. Yeah, Swift springs it is. Well guys, there you have it. Mugen MF10 18 by 9.5 looks really, really good on this Integra Type-S. And we're gonna end today's video. This is part 1 on our Taylor Dragon prep. On next week, we have our part 2. We're gonna have a few other cars on that video, including a JDM Integra Type R. Be sure to stay tuned for that video. Until then, we got a few other things to do, so we'll see you guys next week.